A lot of you probably heard that this woman, Sarah Jeong, I think you pronounce her name, was just hired by the New York Times editorial pages just the other day. She's a young lady. I think she's a native of South Korea. And what was interesting was her record of thousands and thousands and thousands of tweets, many of which were flat out. She talked about how she hated white guys, hated white women. She loved being rude to white guys, on and on and on and on. She can't wait for the day that white people disappear for demographic reasons. Okay, that's not the big deal. The big deal that, there's some hipster spouting these ridiculous, hateful, and racial bromides. I mean, that's easy to find. Go into any coffee shop in Brooklyn, you'll hear somebody saying, no, that's not racism. Racism equals power plus prejudice. So if black people don't have any power, it's impossible for us to be racist. Don't you know that, Colin? Okay, yeah. Listen, that's so stupid, it's not even worth talking about. But it is widely held. That's why there's so much black on white hostility, and everybody feels like it's okay because it's not really racist. This point of view is becoming more and more and more and more mainstream. I mean, just this week, what do we have this week? We've got the documentary of Trayvon. We've got another one about, I forget what the other one. There's like 4 black documentaries out this week alone. So, and they all kind of reflect the same thing, that black people are relentless victims of it, thus relentless white racism. So anything that black people or people of color do to white people is just okay because we're not racist, they're racist. They drew first blood. What I thought was weird about this Sarah Jeong hiring was 2 things. One, this is the New York Times. This is the tip of the spear. This is the pinnacle of journalism, putting its stamp of approval on this attitude. Now, this is an attitude you can find on CNN. This is an attitude you can find on MSNBC. This is an attitude you can find all over the news and editorial pages of the New York Times already. But it's usually, disguised a little bit, held up in a little more polite language. It's usually not the object of this kind of vulgar and obscene approach that the lovely young lady from Korea is espousing. So the New York Times is elevating this person, elevating this approach. And one thing about the New York Times, think of all journalists as like bees. The New York Times is the queen bee. It's amazing how many journalists, if you meet a lot of them, they don't feel like they're competing with other journalists. They all feel like they're part of the same club, part of the same hive, and at the pinnacle of that hive is the New York Times. That's why her thing is significant. It really sends a message to the rest of the hive mind, sends a message to the rest of the Borg. Here's what is acceptable on your editorial pages. And here's how we will reply in case anybody busts us for it. So the very same people who are going to Rick Perry's ranch 30 years ago to turn over a rock, where they say a rock that was written, that racial expletive that was written 30 years ago, is somehow relevant to whether Rick Perry should be president today. These are the ones saying, oh no, she just wrote those ridiculous tweets just a couple years ago, and she was satirizing the people who were trolling her, and it's all one big joke. Don't you get it, Colin? No, I don't get it. I don't get it, especially coming from her, because part of what she's doing here, and with all this anti-white racism and racial hostility, very rare among Asians, by the way, part of what she's doing is part and parcel of that is she's ignoring all this black on Asian violence, stuff that we document here all the time. Here are 4 examples that were in the news just in the last few hours.
Chinese national Jin Dong-hao, his wife, and 4 children had just arrived in Kansas City Monday on a tourist visa. The man known to friends as Hadong was a missionary walking home from the International House of Prayer nearby Wednesday. Police say 18-year-old Kurtrail Hudson had already shot one man in the neck and back with a shotgun and had fired shots at a truck. The truck's driver spotted Howe and shouted to him.
He had warned Hedong, go back, but perhaps in Hedong's lack of English, maybe he didn't know what that guy was saying, and it was so fast that Hedong just came around the corner and was shot by this guy on drugs.
Police believe Hudson was high on PCP. News of his death spread quickly in the Chinese American community and to the church that he had just visited.
We usually consider Kansas City a pretty safe place to live. That's why we choose here to raise a family. Also, we were deeply saddened by the tragedy.
We're grieving deeply here at the International House of Prayer for his family.
Now attention is turning to the wife and 4 children he leaves behind, the oldest, 8, who loved to fish with his dad, and today was left wondering who will take him now.
In the future, we try our best to take care of this family during this hard time.
And I know his wife and kids and others that know him and love him will see how God will provide for this family with Hedong's loss.
Here's what a Christian family from China looks like. Here's what their killer looks like. Can't help but think the wrong person is dead. From Kansas City, where a minister shot by a black guy and everybody just shrugged their shoulders and go, well, it's PCP, so we don't have to worry about anything bigger than that. What about all the other examples of black violence, black on Asian, black on white violence in Kansas City? Stuff you can find every day of the week near the Country Club Plaza. Stuff that we have documented here on many occasions. Everybody there doing PCP? Okay, from Kansas City, why don't we go out to the San Francisco Bay Area, where a Chinese lady is in the parking lot. Good Lord, there's so much stuff going on in parking lots. Wow. Chinese lady in a parking lot. 2 of the fellas and their lovely lady comes up, steal her purse, knock her down, run her over with the car. All the time, this one bystander taking a video, she keeps asking, should I call the cops? Should I call the cops? Wow, I thought that was our line. To call or not to call. So watch this video. We don't really see that much on the video, but luckily we have lots of stuff on Twitter and other accounts. I mean, should they have called the cops on those 3 people for picking on that old Chinese lady? Just by luck they didn't kill her.
Stop! Hold up. Do I need to call the cops?
Hey, if you have nothing to hide, what are you running for?
Stop! Oh my gosh.
Hey, why don't we head over to Manhattan? Another black on Asian episode that is the only reason this Asian person's not dead is because he got lucky.
We're hearing tonight for the first time from the man pushed onto the subway tracks by a thug he never met, a man who he accidentally bumped into. He thought he would die down there, that's what he said, on a subway track in Grand Central Terminal. But then, Good Samaritan suddenly stepped in. Now, as cops look for the attacker, the victim, talking to our Jim Dolan.
Oh my gosh, shock. Yes, I see him. Yes, I see him.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how these people, they want to kill,
His arm around his son and still scraped up from his Monday morning brush with death, Dai Kang had to hold back tears when he saw the picture of the man who he says tried to kill him.
You never know. This guy had something inside the bag because he had the one bag in the backside. So how I know is he had the gun or knife?
Kang was headed to work, waiting for a 6 train at Grand Central when he bumped into another strap hanger there. He didn't think much of it until the same man, he says it was this man, bumped into him again.
He watched me and I scared. And he said, you wanna die? Oops. So I said, you know what, please, I don't want to see your face, get out of here. So, and this time, I turned my back.
That turned out to be a mistake. The man pushed Kang onto the tracks.
I think this is the last day of my life.
Kang says he didn't know if he was going to get hit by a train or get electrocuted. And then he heard a voice.
I hear somebody say, please, give me your hand, give me your hand. So I look in the off, so two guys, it's American citizen people, they helped me.
That would be so sad if he was gone.
Kang talked to us hoping someone will call police to identify the man who shoved him onto the tracks before that man does it to someone else.
And we try to stay in the U.S., but what the hell, I saw somebody sent this to me from Toronto. One of the lovely ladies attacking, beating, robbing a Filipino lady on their subway up there. Nobody thinks that's unusual. Nobody thinks it's a big deal. I would love to hear Sarah Jeong talk about this Black on Asian violence, what it means, if anything. I would love to hear her talk about how easy or difficult it would be for an American journalist to go to Korea and start telling the Koreans how much they suck and how much they should all disappear under the weight of mass immigration coming into their country. Do they put up with that stuff in Korea? Or would they pretty much tell you to get the hell out of there without a care in the world about what black kids got angry?